Welcome, everybody, to episode 6 of the Author Time podcast, brought to you by TMA. Hope you all are doing very well wherever you're listening or watching from. We're glad to have you here on this wonderful Sunday evening. I'm joined here by my co-hosts from TMA, Ellipse, and Agraboo, and with our very special guest, Whiskey, who we will talk to more about and with shortly. Before we get into all of that, just a little rundown for anybody who might be joining us for the first time. This is, like I said, the Author Time podcast. We talk about anything and everything related to TrackMania mapping. So we're going to be talking with our special guest here, Whiskey, for a little bit, just about his career, his insight, and everything about mapping with him. And then we're going to be talking about a little bit of mapping news, as well as some new notable map releases from the community since the last episode, as well as some more recent item sets that have been coming out that you guys can take a look at and play around with. And then at the end, we're going to have a live Q&A with Whiskey. So for anybody participating live in chat here on Twitch who wants to ask a question of Whiskey, myself, or any of the other co-hosts, go ahead and drop your questions now or at any time during the episode. We will keep track of those, and we will have a live Q&A at the end, or if there's anything else that comes to your mind at the end, you can ask your questions then as well. But without further ado, let's talk to Whiskey. So for a lot of people, he doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He's a Dutch TrackMania mapper and player who has nothing short of a meteoric rise in the mapping scene. He has contributed to some of the most legendary and influential mapping projects and events in TM 2020, and many, many more that are still on the way. He is universally recognized as and respected for his continued ability to push the bar in terms of both technical execution and quality in TrackMania mapping. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Agent Whiskey. Whiskey, thank you for being with us.
Hello. Thank you for letting me be on the podcast once again, but this time as a guest, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we really appreciate you joining us as a co-host and your contributions there, but it'd be an absolute disservice if we didn't have you on as a guest, because there's just so much to talk to you about, and we'd love to dig into just more of your thoughts about a lot of different topics. But as you know, before we get into anything else, we like to start off with a little bit of a dive into just some of the maps that you've put out over time in TM 2020. Like you said before, a lot of them are hidden, but there are some that you have kept public. Of the 2/3 of the maps that you've released that are public, I think, over 2/3. I think under 2/3. I think 62% of the maps you've released are public right now. But of those 62%, there are still many bangers that are available. So let's take a look at one of them here. Let's take a look at Nation of Zon. What can you tell us about this map?
Oh, a lot. I mean, dude, that was one of my first maps that I'm actually still proud of, I think. This map was designed for Track of the Day completely. I remember back then just being like, I just want to have a Track of the Day. I just really want to have my first Track of the Day, and I was like, how am I gonna achieve this? And back then I was streaming the process. Some people who were there will probably still remember, but I was thinking like, how can I achieve this? And then, the most obvious answer came to light, and that's to make like the easiest grass route with some cool scenery. And so that's what I did. The grass route was like made in, I don't know, must have been like 2 hours maybe, and that's why it's not the most impressive route either. But I remember being inspired by the style of, I can't remember what the map name was, but it was a map by Yami, and it used some chains.
Yeah, I remember that. The one with
Desert Shroud?
Desert Shroud, Neutron,
exactly.
Yami, and Aller.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the map. So not necessarily like the colors or anything, but like more kind of the epic hanging whatever kind of stuff, right? And as I got to building the scenery, I noticed that it was starting to lean a lot towards like some kind of like vanilla industrial feel, like overgrown sort of stuff. And at the time I was watching, or I just finished watching Arcane, the League of Legends show on Netflix, right? And I thought it kind of reminded me of Zone, the city that the series plays in. And then started looking on Google for some pictures of the city zone, and then yeah, built the rest of it, and that's how the name also came to light.
So how's the lawsuit with Riot Games going after you stole their IP?
I think, luckily, how many views does this video have? I think I'm still fine. Also, this video, some of the composition is also completely stolen from a Riot Games video, but we'll just forget to mention that. Yeah, and I want to say shout out to Shadowcrancer for helping me calculate this map, because back then I definitely wasn't very good at driving maps.
He drove the GPS on this one, right?
He might have, or it was Jozo who drove the time here.
Oh, okay.
I can't really remember.
I'm
but he
pretty
did
sure he
Jozo
did the GPS run.
Yeah, Jozo right there. Just...
Yeah, but like the video might not.
Yeah, the replay in this video is different than the GPS.
Yeah.
So I think maybe, but yeah, fast guy Shadow. So it's really cool to have somebody like that in your corner. And yeah, Shadow is super great dude. Also has one of those people where they're super fast and they're very busy in the game in terms of just constantly hunting and doing different stuff. But he's always been somebody that has been super receptive and willing to help me out with my maps and stuff as well when I haven't been as good or am continuing to not be as good. So shout out Shadow for you know, doing his own part, even if he's not making as many maps, to help us make our maps better.
Definitely.
Yeah, really cool map. And yeah, I definitely do not think the inspiration here is really cool, and I like how you talked about like the arcane inspiration. Although, yeah, the whole thing about the lawsuit, definitely a joke. We have even not anywhere close to being a litmus test for IP stealing in this game. We've had track of the days with Nintendo IP, with Studio Ghibli IP. I think clearly right now that TrackMania is safe so far. Who knows how long that will last? But
I think of the four of us, Whiskey probably encroached on IP the least.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it's a really cool map, and yeah, so this was your first track of the day, right? With this?
Yes, it definitely was. Yeah.
Very well deserved. Speaking of track of the day maps from Whiskey, what can you tell us about Sapphire?
Ooh, this is actually a lot more recent than I would have expected. I think this was must have been fourth track of the day, I think. It was I don't know what the word is, the opposite of predecessor. It's the
sequel.
Yeah, exactly. It's the sequel to Nassau, obviously. This time blue. Yeah, that's it. This map realized I wanted to make it into a trilogy. Yeah, or successor indeed. Yeah, so I set to making a full speed route, and yeah, nothing much special except for the end, I guess.
The flip.
Yeah, exactly. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm the first one with a stunt in Track of the Day there.
A stunt?
No, there's definitely been some of the early maps had some stunts in them.
Right.
Was this, so 7 months ago, was this before or after Bonkphobia? I guess it's right here. Thank you, YouTube. Okay, 1 year. So
Very nice.
this map.
Right, but F stunt is what I'm kind of thinking about. But
had this.
Yeah, I might still be wrong. Oh, that's also yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but
yeah, I wanted something
one of the
special.
cooler stunts.
Yeah, I think
Maybe,
it's really cool, and I also like how there was a little bit of wiggle room in terms of you could not land it, but still kind of your limp body would throw itself towards the finish.
Yeah, that's the nice part of it. And even then, there is like, you know, there's like a speed where you land it perfectly. There's a speed where you land it kind of like okay, and then there's a speed where you just crash into the finish, which is nice because it lets a lot of people get in, but it doesn't let you just get away with free time either.
Right.
Yeah, and on top of that, I made a cool intro for this map. It was like the first attempt I did on a more advanced intro. I think that one's also pretty cool.
Nice.
I don't think
it's the intro's not in the video.
Link of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's unlucky then.
I'm really mad about that.
You'll have to look at it for yourself.
Yeah, who is this guy that didn't include the intro in the? Yeah, don't subscribe to this guy on YouTube. He's messing
maybe
everything.
just even unsub if you're already subbed. Such a disappointment.
Everybody, follow along with me. Here we go. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, super sick map. I think really clearly at this point coming to form in terms of your FS mapping abilities. Super flowy, super cool. Really making the most of that scenery and really memorable ending, I think, for a lot of people. So really cool map.
Yeah,
and,
thank you.
Yeah. And like you said, at this point, this was probably your maybe 4th or 5th track of the day. Kind of already cemented yourself in the TU2D player lexicon. So
at that point, I think so. Yeah.
Now kind of going even more recent and looking at something with that maybe a couple people in this call can talk about. What can you tell us about this map, Awaken?
I think I'll let Agrabu talk about that even, because
okay.
It's a duo.
Yeah, I mean, do we want to talk about the most interesting part of this, building this? Or we want to keep that a secret?
Well, now that you've mentioned it, so it's illegal for you to keep it a secret.
Yeah, that's a good point.
True.
So, we had built this for the Carlberg mapping comp, and we're like kind of decently happy with it, but after we had some people test it, kind of realized, oh, well dang, the first half isn't quite up to where it needs to be. So we actually rebuilt up to the same ending. I think from the double transition was like the last thing that we kept. And then just rebuilt everything from, like, the entire first half of the route was built from scratch after the second half to match up with it, which I think was really interesting. I also personally really liked working on this because I've done some duos with people, but I think this was the most like duo where we were really both going back and forth with each other, but also were in calls often while we were building on it. So it was really
nice,
very collaborative from the route side of things.
Yeah,
that's true. I also, for some reason, I kind of tend to forget this map, but when I now look back at this is still like probably one of the coolest maps I've ever made. I just
agreed.
Well, not me, obviously. It's also Agra, but I just really like this map. How it plays, the like tiny little tricks you can do to gain time.
I remember how long it took you to learn the ride trick on the big step up.
Right.
Jump.
Yeah. Agra taught me. He taught me.
Yeah. I think it's a really phenomenal map. I think it's really cool to hear that this was such an integrative, collaborative process for you guys. It's really surprising, I guess, to hear in both a couple ways. One of how, I guess, how much you guys were both working with it back and forth, and also with the additional, I guess, secret, or maybe that was not fully secret, but the insight about how you had reformed the first half. Those are both very rare things that end up in a map that is cohesive and flowy and stuff. Having, you know, a lot of back and forth and reworking things from the beginning, you know, those are really hard things to pull off. Yeah. So the fact that you guys were able to do that and create such a polished final project is pretty remarkable.
It was pretty nice before as well, but I think like we wanted to have this absolutely perfect since this was for the Carlberg competition, right?
Yeah.
And I think it definitely was a good choice to rework it in the end.
Yeah. I'd say also something I think for me personally that this map left a really strong impression was such a strong variance in the amount of like new school versus old school techniques using. And in terms of, at the time, like these blocks, these thin blocks, as well as like the holes in the blocks and stuff, like those were all pretty new to Team 2020. And then just using that in conjunction with kind of these retro blocks as well, in terms of the driving techniques with the outside, the inside, the corner cutting, the ride tricks, like it just felt like such a mixture of all the different like elements from TrackMania's history, and it's just really cool. So.
And then I did a bit of a little bit of the scenery, but I'd say like 90% of the scenery is Whiskey, and anything I did was just kind of like building up some stuff in his lead.
But you did the good parts, right? You did the good parts. That was you're saying?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Really solid map. and very different than the last two maps we talked about, Sapphire and Nation is On. I think you've definitely made a lot of different types of maps.
Insanity guy, we get it. You're good. You can no slide every single corner we build.
Next time we'll ask you, right? Okay, we get it.
Wait, is this Gear 3 turn, a dirt turn, a slide into a slide cancel? I'm so surprised. It is? Oh no.
I mean, Insanity finds a way, he gets it, and then uncalculated, unlucky.
Unlucky people are so good at this. Yeah, I mean, really, really great maps, and I think you've been putting out lots of different types of maps and lots of different shapes and sizes. And kind of as we mentioned, while maybe over a third of them are hidden on TMX, at least of the ones that are public, you have a lot of different styles of maps that you've been focusing on and kind of working with over time. But one that has definitely, maybe not a particular style of map, but a category that you've had a lot of prominence in is competitive maps. You have 17 different maps that are at least tagged as competitive, with over a dozen that have been made specifically for designated competitions and different events, lands, etc. I just was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what draws you towards competitive mapping and what you feel about it in general.
That's a good question. Well, first of all, I want to state that I am not a full speed mapper.
Of course.
I do see myself as an everything Andy. Competitive mapping is, I think, definitely something that I like the most. That's true. And so I don't really know how that came to life, but I guess it was. Well, I got into this game like 2 years ago, and I very early on discovered shorts videos of the old games. A lot of tech, right? That in TM2 and stuff, and like somehow, like, even though I didn't know almost anything about the game, I could see like the work that goes into making a competitive map rather than just the track of the day. And I think it just, I don't know, something in me said like, I really, really want to make such maps. They look so cool and they can just be pushed so far. And it's the most interesting kind of style to me, I think, to build. That's why I still like tech the most as well. I think that's just mostly because of TM2. And it's funny story. I started playing TM2 after TM20, just to build some maps in that as well. Just, I don't know. It's weird. I think I've talked about this in the description of my duo with Agrabu. I'm not sure if it was. No, it was in the description of a video I made on a TM2 map I did. I think I described there how it's like somehow you can kind of reminisce about times where you haven't actually been there yourself, like you get a feeling of nostalgia. Like, I built a TM2 map, I got a feeling of nostalgia, which is like stupid because I haven't, experienced it myself ever, but it just, I don't know, it felt really cool because you know the kind of history that played in that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just feels really, really cool to make a map like that in TM2 then.
So do you
feel...
sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
Oh, I was just going to ask, that's really interesting that you went back to TM2 in that way when you started in Team 2020. Do you feel that shaped kind of your perspective with Team 2020 mapping, or feel like you learned anything from that experience? Do you think it made you a better mapper?
Maybe not really. I mostly just bought TM2 because a friend of mine, Amadeo, he said it was like the best game ever, and he kept sending videos of Mappacks that he really liked, of tech maps, and I was like, yeah, that is so awesome. And like a lot of stuff that I made is just inspired by those kinds of maps. And then at one point I was like, I'm just gonna buy it because such a cool thing to try and do once, and then that happened like that.
Okay, so at the very least, it was a kind of a good additional source of inspiration for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So kind of coming, or I guess full circle back to kind of where you put those strengths and liking tech, liking competitive maps. What would you say has been your biggest like journey in terms of what you've learned about making better competitive maps in terms of your approach to mapping for competitive?
So I remember the very, very first competitive map I ever did was with Vixa. It was for Cup of the Vey,
Yep.
it was really funny because Valen, I used to watch her, I still do. She had a competition called Cup of the Vey, and she asked some mappers to make some competitive maps for her. And I was like, I've seen those videos, I've got to try my hand on making competitive, and I didn't know what I was doing in the editor back then, basically. And I asked Valen, "Yo, can I please map for a Cup of the Vey? Because I don't know, it would be so cool." I'll ask Vixa to do a duo with me then, because Vixa knows how to map, I don't. He can guide me a little bit so the map doesn't turn out like absolute dog water. So yeah, oh, you've got it pulled up already. I see. This was the starting point of my competitive mapping, I think. Yeah, just Fixa taught me stuff about competitive mapping here as well. I made the start, and he was actually really impressed by it. And I think everything I made afterwards was pretty shit. But yeah, this is just I don't know. Like it felt so good watching people drive in rounds on stuff that you made, and people actually taking it seriously and being along. Like in between the lineup of other really good mappers that had their map in. It was just I don't know, it's a completely different feeling of seeing people drive your Cup of the Day track or people drive your competitive map in rounds.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. It's there's a different sense of I guess fine-tune attention to detail. With the Cup of the Day, of course, you've got everybody from pros to beginners to anything in between playing, but everybody is playing off of their first impression, basically. Whereas competitive maps, people are trying a lot harder most of the time,
sure.
or in a lot of cases, they have a lot of preparation time to figure out lines, and then in even more special cases, they will hide lines and prepare lines for competition rounds, which is always incredibly exciting to see what people pull out when it hits the fan. So that's really, really cool to see, and I totally understand that perspective. You mentioned Vixa teaching you a thing or two. Is there anything you could actually tell us about types of things he may have taught you, or just kind of things you walked away from that experience having learned?
I mean, maybe not particularly something in specific, but like I've sent him stuff, and well, obviously they didn't work because I was a very, very bad driver. I didn't think so at the time, but he explained in detail how
How bad
this
you
is
were.
not exactly, basically. Now, yeah, and so he was like being very nice about it, suggesting how you could fix the turn, and that ended up happening. And yeah, I think Vixa was way too nice about it. He should have just told me to go again after I sent him a bad section. But yeah, nice guy Vixa. He's been on the podcast.
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree. I think Vix is just too nice. Yeah, this is a problem.
For sure. Vixa, be less nice.
Yeah, huge shout out Vixa. Yeah, that's great to hear that. I mean, you did mention that there was nothing in particular, like more specifically.
I mean, not that I remember, at least.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
Oh yeah, that's totally fair. But like you said, that was just kind of the start of your kind of venture into competitive mapping. And I'm sure there are maybe a couple more things that you've learned for yourself or through other people or otherwise as far as your approach to competitive mapping in general. Do you think you would be able to offer kind of any advice for people kind of maybe coming from either cup mapping, like Cup of the Day style, Track of the Day style mapping, to casual mapping, to lull mapping, to, or just coming in completely new who've played but want to make maps? What would you say are the strongest aspects of a good competitive map?
So, that's a difficult question. I think it's such a vague answer that I'm gonna give, but I think flow is very important.
Okay.
Obviously, and like rooting out inconsistencies that can cause players to like clip or whatever. Like that's the kind of stuff you need to look after in a competitive map.
Do you have any personal definition of flow? Because I know a lot of people tend to kind of think of it differently.
So first of all, oh, now I forgot what to say. Anyways, yeah. So flow for me, I think, is when you can just full. So this is rough to explain. I think just having no PF parts is already a big help there. Just being able to full steer in the start and not being able to, or just not having sections where nothing happens. Just try to keep the track interesting. Just obviously important because players need to train the map for longer periods of time, and so that's something you need to look after.
Yeah.
And another tip I would give is that don't be afraid to stick to a surface for longer than you might want to, or than you might feel like, because I see a lot of people make one grass turn and call it a day. They think, I need to switch surfaces. It's a mixed map after all. I need to go to dirt or need to go to plastic. I think it can feel really nice if you do like 2 grass turns, maybe even 3 grass turns. Don't be afraid to experiment a bit with that as well.
I still fall into that trap. It's yeah.
Oh, me too. Me too. Like it's like I'm definitely not there yet with competitive mapping. Especially, I mean, at least not at the level that a Clem is at or a Rocat is at. Like those people I still learn from every single day.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That's something that people really look to because they see maybe some of the flashiest looking mapping experiences being constant surface transitions, hyper transitional like platform elements, things where the player's really holding on for dear life to the route in a sense. And they kind of can maybe lose sight of competitive maps being about driving. Kind of like you said, not having PF moments, having as much time that you're playing driving. I guess maybe that's a confusing statement, but what I mean by that is
don't go too flashy.
Yeah, but you're making. Oh, sorry. What I was meaning specifically was that in terms of making decisions that are affecting whether you're going faster or slower, and that is not just going to be reserved to the flashiest thing. Like you said, if maybe you're doing 2 dirt turns in a row, maybe they aren't the craziest looking flashy surface transitions, but if they are engineered in a way that faster players can risk more and go faster, then it's a good addition. Yeah. So
exactly.
Yeah, I guess is there anything else kind of on your mind that you could tell us, or little bits of insight about competitive map making?
The last tip I would have is just look at previous competitive maps. Just look at the MC maps, look at the CPS maps, look at the TMA maps. Like they're all one for one just fantastic maps that you can learn from if you're just starting out with competitive mapping. Just try to like see what mappers did and why they did it. Just drive them yourself if you're not skilled enough. Just look at the video, the Mappack videos, and the turn combinations. Like take inspiration from other mappers for sure.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Well, I mean, on the topic of competitive maps, you've done your handful of submissions to competitive map packs, such as EMC and otherwise. You participated in lots of different competitive events, LANs, other online events, and you were actually now being a part of the organization and kind of the mapping management of Racer Summit, which is a LAN event that's coming up. And pardon my pronunciation, Scheveningen, Netherlands. So this is happening in July. And there are still maps being considered. The deadline is in 10 days. So if anybody is trying to put in a map and get it looked at and potentially be part of this, you still got 10 days. This is really exciting. I think LAN events are always super huge and exciting for TrackMania players. What can you tell us about just your involvement in this, how you got involved, and what it's looking like for you?
So, yeah, first of all, coming back to your point, LAN events are the best. If you ever get an opportunity to go to a LAN event, definitely do. It's just the best. Like I don't know what else to say. You meet your friends. It's a great time. But yeah, mapping of the Racer Summit wise, I think well, Trigger, the main organizer of the event, he approached me and he asked if I wanted to do the mapping part of the organization. And I think that happened because, well, we've had 2 Gamax events, and both of them I've been a part of for the mapping process. Yeah, and for the last one, I kind of was a bit more involved, kind of had charge, and I think that's why Trigger asked me for this event. And yeah, so far the organization is going pretty fine. I think Agra is a map tester.
Yeah.
So once we've got some maps, we'll get to testing. So guys, if you
if you want to
fancy
get your
a bit of
prize this
mapping,
way, you know who to contact now.
exactly, just shoot Agrabu a little DM. Wanna rate a bit higher? I'll put this.
Yeah.
The scenery is really, really nice.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if you wanna map some competitive, definitely give it a go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you heard it from these guys. If you want to submit a map for this competition, if you learned anything from Whiskey, if you got inspired today, you still have time. So go ahead, check out. The details are in this map pack. And if you're in the area come July, go to the event. Like Whiskey said, LAN events are the best. Maybe someday we'll have one here in the States. That would be amazing. Yeah. So I mean, this is all well and good. I kind of want to circle back to your mapping though, because there's definitely more things to talk about. I mean, I mentioned in your introduction that you've kind of been always got the forefront of pushing mapping in the right direction in terms of quality of your maps, and I think we've definitely seen the ceiling for quality rise over the last couple of years that you've been more involved in the mapping scene. And people are just generally putting in more work, people putting in more time, putting in more care and polish into their maps. And one great example of that is tutorials in maps, which is something we saw in your map Halo that came out in early 2022. And it maybe wasn't the first map to ever feature a tutorial of some sort, but it definitely for a lot of people was one of their first kind of exposure to that experience, and not just having a GPS, but actually having a more integrated, fleshed out, detailed in-map walkthrough of how to play the map, some tips, some integrated 3D triangles, indications, etc. So I think it's safe to say that that map was really influential for a lot of people, and is heavily contributed since then towards more of a trend of tutorials that we've been seeing. So I guess just first of all, with Halo specifically, what was your main influence and kind of that brought you to that point and going through with making that, and how did that go for you?
So it's funny you bring up Halo, because I really love that map still. This was my second cup of the day, I guess. Track of the day map, right? Amadeo, he really helped me out with this map right here. I mentioned him before. Yeah, so what happened was I was at work and this map got track of the day, and I was really sad that I couldn't be there. I really wanted to be there for this one, but yeah. So this GPS, I really don't know anymore. I just don't remember why or how I put it in. I think it was because a friend of mine called Stone Labs taught me how to do 3D triangles, and I was like, this could make a cool kind of tips and tricks for people if they struggle with tech, right? So with the help of Amadeo as well, I got some tips and tricks together with some arrows, and yeah, just slapped them on the map and
slapped them on. You just slapped them on. Yeah.
Oh, it didn't go like that. I did this on stream as well, and the Ctrl-Z incident happened, deleted 3 hours of my progress. But
oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
Right, Sparkling was even there, I think, when it happened. He's in the chat right now, I see. But yeah,
can't believe you had the audacity to hit buttons on your keyboard while mapping.
Yeah,
don't do that.
guys, do not press Ctrl Z in after being in media tracker.
At 3 a.m.
Yeah, I mean it was midday even. It was hot, I remember.
Yeah, that's like just a core memory. Is that moment when
Yes.
of horror where you realize, oh yeah. See, or you can take my path and just not do media tracker. There you go. Never have that problem.
So free.
Or only save when you're finished with the map.
Yeah, that's the hard cut. That's the Chad way. Literally start, open the editor and then you have unnamed .map.gbx ready to go, and you just one sitting just bust it all out. No save, no breaks.
Oh yeah, good tip for that is actually if you're like, you did another bunch of text, another slow-mo part, just make a save of the media tracker clip. Just export the media tracker clip and just call it whatever, like Halo GPS autosave 1 or whatever. That's what I do nowadays, and that way you just never lose
triangle positions.
Yes, it does. If you it does.
Yeah, to the location on the map.
That's a good tip. That's a really good tip. I mean, and just I think it goes without saying in general, constantly save your map for no reason, anyways.
My workflow with media tracker stuff is to save and then exit the map and re-enter every time I'm saving media tracker stuff, just to make absolutely sure you don't accidentally erase it and then save over previous save.
Yep.
If you exit out and exit back in, you can't Control Z yourself on media tracker.
Yep. The action queue gets cleared, so there's no way to, like you said, undo redo. That's a good tip. Yeah. And then just in general, saving constantly. It's always a good habit to be in, because also aside from media tracker, there's just certain buttons that will it's a coin flip if they'll crash your editor. So you just want to just always be vigilant with saving. It's a good habit to get into.
It's funny that we're mentioning crashes too, because like Sparkling said the same thing that I do, which is to save, leave, and exit. That recently has actually just been crashing my game a lot, which if you think about it, is the perfect time to get a crash right after you've saved.
Yeah, true.
Yep. Instead of right as you're about to. So
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Also recently started getting crashes trying to open the map editor, which is also interesting.
Oh yeah, being around Whiskey, being like, well, I might be gone.
Oh yes. Oh, it happens too often that when I save a map, my PC just crashes, just blue screens, and at this point, I don't even need to mention it to Agra anymore. Agra, you know what happens? He says, yeah.
You just see an unprompted DM from Agra. You just know. You just see the notification. That's all you need. I mean, sorry, from Agra to Agra. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is really cool implementation. I know people been talking about in chat. There was the Gimmick CE map from Entry Lag that also had some more tutorial type stuff in Cup of the Day. And there were a couple of these maps that.
Oh. Yeah.
I remember where I got it from. The idea. I got it from this map by Eddie and Entry Lag. They used like one slow-mo and one 3D triangle on their map. It's called something with irrigation or something.
Oh.
Not irrigation or whatever. It was a map by them, and they used like one arrow with slow-mo. Yeah, agitation, exactly. They used like one. I like. Carp is saying Stootsflug. It wasn't that map. Anyways, so that's where I got it from, and then I was like, yo, this could be like really nice if you just put it on the map, but like with every turn you give a tip or whatever. So yeah, shout out to Entry Lag and Eddie then.
Yeah, that's really cool. Shout out Entry Lag and Eddie. I think Entry Lag's also just been somebody that is really into pushing media tracker with that type of thing. Yep. So I'm definitely not surprised. True. And like I mentioned before,
if you have a new and fresh idea, there's like a 90% chance that Entry's already done it.
Just in general. Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, this map is definitely influential, I think, in trend of, along with Entry's maps, of course, going towards more of those elements of polish within the map and more additional experiences that are not just, I guess, adding polish and showing more attention to detail and more work going into the map, but making it more accessible to beginners, offering more tools rather than just making the map itself easier, giving newer players or less experienced players more opportunities to get better quicker. I think that's great to see, where you're not having to compromise on the actual technical aspects of playing the map in order to do that.
Yeah.
So that's been a big thing, and I think we'll maybe see more of that in the future. It'll be interesting to see how that trend continues. But that's not the only ways that you've kind of been at the forefront of pushing polish. One of the other ways that you've gained quite a reputation as one of the most talented thumbnail creators in the scene right now. I think it's fair to say that the bar for thumbnails has gone quite a bit up in the last, I'd say even year, especially. Kind of in the last, like in the earlier days of Team 2020, maybe people would just post a nice screenshot from a nice angle, and then we started seeing some more actual, third-party software, Photoshop, other things going on. But these last year or so, people have been really pushing that ceiling of quality in terms of thumbnails, and you have been absolutely at the forefront of that.
I wouldn't know about that, man. It's
you're not gonna admit it, but you're gonna be humble. I understand.
The people have already voted.
The people have voted.
This is true.
I think one that, I mean, for example, one that took a lot of people by surprise is for a pretty innocuous little tech mini, but captivated people pretty much instantly. Was this Ayuk's thumbnail? Can you just?
I think if Insanity is still in chat, he will murder you if he ever meets you. For that pronunciation.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't want to. I didn't want to try to pronounce it. That's why I said this little tech mini, because I was like, I'm gonna butcher it if I try. But yeah, what can you tell us about kind of the process? What inspired you for this, and how did you actually go about making it happen?
Oh my, this is also such a long time ago. I think it even says it on the thumbnail. I was just really bored, and I got this. I think I saw it on Pinterest. It was like a cake, just like a regular round cake, a birthday cake or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like made out of water, like that thumbnail that I made, and it had like a whale in it, and I thought it looked like really epic. And then I started I clicked on the picture and I saw more of these kind of, like, I don't know, it was like diorama maybe? I don't know the English word for it. Anyways, those kinds of like artworks. And I saw one that was square like mine, and I thought, well, that might be a cool idea to make a map for. So I made this map for the thumbnail, which is like the dumbest, weirdest thing I've ever done as well. Is like, you think of a thumbnail idea and then you make a map for the thumbnail, which, normally it's the other way around. But yeah, it's like, okay, so I'll get this water base, build the map in it, and then it's small enough to fit on there. And I was very inexperienced with Photoshop back then, and you can still see a lot of flaws. There's even, if you look very closely, there's even like a watermark somewhere on the seafloor. But
all right, yeah, just throw the whole map away. Yeah, okay, but don't pay attention anymore.
Yeah, but people ended up. I liked it, but it got so much more hype than I expected. Because I posted it on Twitter, and people like graphic designers that don't even know TrackMania started retweeting it, and it got like. I was pretty new to Twitter, and it got like so many likes and retweets. What? Okay, I really didn't expect that. Sorry for the mic, but yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear that. I mean, and that you're getting recognition just outside of just the general TrackMania gremlin community of people that are just looking at TMX and playing these maps. I think it's really cool to see thumbnails playing a bigger part in terms of presentation for maps. I think maybe it started as a means of, just get grabbing people's attention on TMX to stand out from the crowd. But it's clearly, like yourself, you had an idea for a thumbnail, and then that translated into a map that came out of that concept, just in general. And that thumbnail played a part in that theme.
Yep.
I guess in terms of, it's great, and because of that, it's great to see how thumbnails have become a part of that creative process, not just as a means of advertising in that way.
I mean, yeah, true. This map, like, it got hunted. It got crazy hunted. I don't know what exactly happened. I think it was Karlberg who started it. he opened it on stream, and then more and more people started. But I think like the thumbnail definitely had a hand in that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, and like you said, you're not going to admit it yourself, but I think it's very clear that you have been part of this movement that is pushing thumbnails to their limits, and I think it's fair to say we'll see a lot more people experimenting and a lot of more people really getting the most out of that thumbnail making progress and kind of seeing a lot more complete visions of maps. But yeah, if you are interested, definitely just scrolling through Whiskey's maps, you'll be blown away by some of these thumbnails. Just talking about more recently, all of them just very different styles. It's clearly integrating a lot of different concepts and techniques, and it's just really cool to see how you've been putting those together. And really,
thank you. I will definitely try to keep to improve them and make them different each time. Obviously not always possible, but I'll try.
Well, I'm glad. Just for me, you'll keep doing it, and I appreciate that. Yeah. So, I mean, one more thing. I know you mentioned we were talking about Sparkling earlier, and he made an appearance in chat. Hi, Sparkling. Something that came up a little bit is the deep dip map, because you did have a hand in that. And for those who aren't super familiar with the deep dip map, it was a very legendary Bennett Foddian style map that came out of a previous product. It was the successor to a previous project. And in late 2022, it quickly became quite the phenomenon. With some of the highest viewership in TrackMania 2020 history during the periods of the top players attempting that map. Can you just tell us a little bit about, I mean, we talked about mapping for Cup of the Day, mapping for competition, and those kind of different experiences of watching somebody play your map in those contexts. Can you tell us a little bit about just what it was like mapping for this, and then kind of on the other side, what it was like watching people play a map like this that you contributed to?
Oh, wow, dude. Deep Dip was something. Yeah, so I can start at the start. So I remember them the at the time Bennett for the 8 My CPs mappers. I remember seeing the streamers play the map on stream. Like I remember Carlberg playing it with Bird, and I don't remember who else. Hilby. So Bird and Hilby, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. And I think I knew they were gonna make a second one, and I also already kind of knew Sparkling from his streams and everything, and both Dutch. So I went into his DMs and just straight up asked, "Yo, for 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 Bennett Foley stole my CPs too?" And he said, "Yeah, sure. We're still looking for mappers, so why not?" And back then I also really wasn't that established yet, so I mean that's leap of faith by Sparkling. But I mean, yeah, I was the first one to make a floor together with Sparkling. I think Sparkling was the absolute first, because I went after him, and I was just so excited to be able to map for that.
So you did do it. You did it in order then. So when you did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
When you did floor 01, the second floor 01.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Yeah. So I remember just before Sparkling made the bottom floor, I already started like practicing RPG, because I was not experienced at all with this kind of stuff, and I did my first iteration of my deep dip floor was fuck awful. It was so bad. When I look back at it, and I mean, to be fair, this one isn't much better. It's made like a year, a year earlier than when Deep Dip released, right? So Deep Dip released this November, and it was made like the December the year before, November or December the year before.
Damn.
So when it got out, it was like, "Yo, Whiskey, your floor kind of sucks." And I was like, "I know, I built it a year ago, man. Just leave me alone." No. I still like it has a creative reuse in it. I like it. It's just a bit tedious to drive over and over again. Fair enough. But dude, mapping for this was great, and seeing people play the map was so much more awesome. Even this whole deep dip thing has been incredible. Yeah, just the amount of pace pals, as we call them, that went from virtual stream to Lars stream to Brent stream to it was insane. It was just insane, and the mappers of Deep Dip, we were just in a voice call for like a week straight, like just the entire day we were in the voice call, just watching streams and just fucking laughing our asses off.
Yeah, I think
like this is something that people don't know, I think, but we were laughing so hard seeing people struggle on this map. So it was fucking funny.
I mean, there's definitely a good amount of sadistic humor in general that goes into a concept in general and a map like this in general. I'm curious if you recall this quote or what this quote means to you. We have the same taste, you and I. It's not ambition, it's ambition's opposite. Do you recognize that quote?
I do. I am the snake. Yeah, I am the snake, guys. Don't take the snake, or you'll hear me sarcastically giving you some motivation, I guess.
Yeah, I think what was it like? I mean, so like you mentioned, for those unfamiliar, that is the message that Whiskey relays to the player himself when somebody accidentally falls into the engine off that sends him down from floor 11 all the way down to the bottom through a giant, horrible, torturous tube. So many people have heard that voice and you say that line and probably screamed at you on the other side of their computer. What was it like, I guess, recording like voice lines for a map? Like that's just such a unique thing. Like what was that experience like for you?
I mean, yeah, I really tried making my microphone sound good, and I mean, no one really likes their own voice, right? No one likes hearing it. I don't either. Every time people drive into my voice line, I'm like, dude, fuck off. I don't want to hear my own voice, especially not in front of what was it, like 20 something thousand viewers on virtual stream at one point. Like,
do a cut around the media tracker trigger. Come on.
Yeah, I think I have 2 lines, and one of them even got kind of destroyed because of trigger stuff. But yeah, like also quickly want to mention this. It's kind of off topic, but the server that everyone was playing on was like set up like maybe 1.5 days in advance. Everything, like, I got the idea of letting all the streamers play on one server instead of them discovering it into their own on their own in their own club and everything, which ended up being like the best idea ever, and we completely didn't expect that, so we were like pretty unprepared for all the server load, and like, of course we expected it to get popular, Deep Dip, but we didn't expect it to get this popular.
Right. Yeah.
Which but yeah, so yeah, it was some parts we made like tiny mistakes, such as the voice line cutoff, but like the amount of testing we get to do this time, the amount of setting up, it's gonna be an even better experience, even better map, better everything.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're talking about, what this looks like going to the future, and the future of the Deep Dip franchise, I guess you could call it. There is, if anybody is unaware, there is a Deep Dip 2 mapping competition that was announced in April, where Sparkling has been collecting submissions to be a part, I guess kind of an open call to be people to potentially be a part of Deep Dip 2. It sounds like you had a very positive experience in Deep Dip 1.
Dude, if you map for this and your floor ends up being accepted, you're gonna have a very fun time. So I definitely encourage you to try to map for this.
When's the deadline?
I didn't see a
I think it's
deadline
end of
anymore.
July. End of July, if I'm not wrong.
Maybe if Sparkling's here, maybe he could clarify, because I wasn't able to find a deadline. Yeah, it's end of July.
Yeah, end of July. And I think it's if you're like not completely finished, you can still send it in, because obviously we'll just see the potential, and
right.
you know.
Yeah. So is it safe to say that you are going to be pursuing a part of this project as well, Whiskey? Will we see you in Deep Dip 2? Or at least, is that your intent?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely, 100%.
Well, that's great to hear.
This time with a not so outdated floor, I hope.
Starting fresh with everything you've learned from that experience.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Well, it's great to hear. I mean, like somebody else mentioned in chat earlier, you've had your hand in so many different things, and it'd be impossible for us to get to all of that now. But it's been great hearing from you a little bit about all those different things. If you have any other questions, we got to move on to the next section now. But if you have any other questions for Whiskey that you haven't asked already, drop them either now or at any other time, and we will circle back to those in the Q&A section here in a little bit. But for now, we're going to move into the news section of the podcast. We're going to talk about some mapping news. We've actually got quite a few different things this time around, so we're going to go a little bit rapid fire. But if anything catches your eye, go ahead and check it out. So first of all, we're going to talk about the Evo Pride campaign, which was released a few days ago at the start of the month. This is a campaign built by a handful of mappers within Evo to commemorate the Pride fundraiser, which is now live. You can check that out as well. Really cool campaign. If you're interested, checking it out. A lot of cool maps from a lot of talented mappers. Go check that out now. We've also got a couple different map request pieces of news to talk about. We did mention earlier the Racing Summit deadline for the Racing Summit map competition is going to be in 10 days. So if you are interested, go check that out there. But we've got a couple new ones that have been announced recently. We've got the Pan American TrackMania Cup. Competition from players from North, Central, and South America. There you can reach out to CD on Discord if you've got any questions about this. The deadline is June 23rd, which is coming up. So if you're interested in mapping for that, go check it out. What were you going to say? You add to that, Agra?
Oh, yeah, I think I saw somewhere that this is basically the spiritual successor to TrackMania American Open, for people who remember that.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Pan American. Yeah. We also have Full Speed Weekly. This is just going to be receiving full speed maps, obviously. 45 to 55 seconds. Taking submissions here. If anybody wants to rev up their full speed engines, go ahead and check out this map pack from Chris and Samzim. They're going to be taking Evo Full Speed Weekly submissions. On the same topic of full speed, we also are seeing entries being taken now for Full Speed Masters Season 2. So these are going to be some longer, competitive full speed maps, some wild stuff. I'm sure we're going to see a handful of really good submissions, but if you want to throw your hat into the fray, go ahead and check it out. This map pack by Babu here on TMX, Full Speed Masters Season 2. Already seeing a couple coming through. I think the deadline is 24th of June. A lot of these having a mid-June cutoff. So pick your submissions wisely, I guess. Or just map for all of them. Just shots on goal, right? And going on to another category, we've got a tech competition, KOTT, also coming back. Looking at some 40 to 45 second tech maps. Taking submissions until 2nd of July, so start of July. So if you're looking to map some mid-range competitive maps for tech, it's not as hardcore, not as advanced, not as pro level. These are intermediate maps, but I'm sure obviously we're still going to see some really crazy gameplay and some really high quality maps coming out of these map packs. So if you're interested, check it out. KOTT 2023. Another one. We've got the Delta Ultimate KO Season 3 from Ski Freak. He's going to be taking map submissions. So these are multi-lap maps. So kind of another different style coming through here. And the only other requirement is that, aside from the length and the difficulty, is that at least 2 different surfaces or styles represented in each map. So if this is something that sounds interesting to you, it's a pretty interesting knockout competition. Go check it out. Delta Ultimate KO. The deadline for the map submissions is a little bit longer. It's until September 30th. So you got a good amount of time. If you're looking to map for one of the other aforementioned competitions, you can maybe tackle that first and then return to this one. But it should definitely be interesting to see the types of maps that are coming out of this one. Aside from these other map requests for cups, we got another campaign here from the Monkasteer team. They came out with a campaign recently at the end of last month with a handful of different mixed, full speed, ice, dirt, different types of maps. We got, I think, 16 maps total. Is what I thought, or maybe 15, I guess. It starts, the IDs are just off. Yeah, so I think it's 15 maps.
That can happen on TMX.
Yeah.
If, one of the maps had to be taken out and re-uploaded or something.
I think that's what happened. So 15 maps from the Monkasteer team. Cool to see them coming out with a unified front for the first time. And some interesting stuff coming from some mappers that a lot of people here will probably be aware of and have been putting out some quality stuff for some time. So go check it out from the Monkasteer team. Monkasteer campaign. And then last but not least, there was another LAN event that was announced at the beginning, or not necessarily announced, but was posted here at the beginning of the month. XPE Evo LAN tournament by Xperia in Cologne. It's going to be in September, and they are taking offers for full map packs by any mapping groups. So it's kind of interesting to see how this is going to look like.
They're not.
Yeah, they're not.
Oh, they're not. Oh, okay. I misread that then. We'll not be accepting any offers. Okay. They were just specifying that. Okay. So I guess anybody then is able to submit individual maps. These are standard competitive mix, slightly longer maps, intermediate to advanced. So if anybody, like I said, LAN events are really cool. They draw a lot of hype. So hopefully this event is no different, and hopefully we see a lot of cool maps coming in for this. So if anybody's interested in mapping for this, go ahead and check it out. And then I had another link up here before TMX died. Let's see if TMX is back. Okay, I don't know what this was. Yeah, we were having some unlucky timing here with TMX going down. Unfortunately, I don't have that up, and it's hard for me to pull it up quickly. I don't know if any of the other co-hosts knew if I was missing anything off the top of their heads.
I think that's it. You might have just checked if it was still because like XP Evo is the last thing we sent in news.
Okay.
So,
all right. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that's great.
I'll say one thing. Babsify mentioned that the BIPL Season 2's open map request. I think that came up on a previous one. We have enough trouble keeping up with the ones that have come out since the last podcast, let alone all the ones that are still active.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
There's so many of them.
Yeah, there's probably some that we mentioned in previous podcasts that have submissions coming in soon or like this week. The only one I mentioned in particular was the Racing Summit one, just because we were talking about it. But goes without saying, we don't have enough space to talk about every single ongoing news. So, but hopefully we are able to bring attention to a couple that people here might be interested in. So we're going to be moving on from there because we got a handful of these to talk about as well. A lot of really cool maps coming out in the last couple weeks that definitely we needed to highlight. We couldn't get to all of them, unfortunately, because there's just always so many cool maps coming out from so many talented people. But there is a couple that we wanted to give a little extra shout out to. Starting with Water Tower by Squeagle. This was really, really cool map. I don't know. We could give the floor up to some of my co-hosts or the guests here if they had any thoughts on this map.
I mean, first of all, talk about thumbnails as well. Squeagle, definitely up there right now.
Oh yeah, 100%. This map is really cool. It's like Steel Symphony, but IMO just a little bit better.
But blue.
But blue.
And blue.
I mean, we were kind of like nagging him to make another sequel to this one, like the Steel Symphony, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, I will do it," and it turned out like really good.
So everybody's been doing their own version of Steel Symphony. So I guess is this Squeagle.
Yeah,
his own version.
Yeah, this Squeagle guy finally jumped on the Steel Symphony train. Took him long enough. Like, come on, guys. Yeah, really cool, really solid map. A lot of very reminiscent, like you guys mentioned, of Still Symphony. And really flowy, really fun, and great aesthetics. Just overall, really, really solid map again from Squeagle. He's been killing it right now. And I'm sure we'll see more of him for this type of stuff very soon. So if you haven't checked it out already, go check it out. Water Tower by Squeagle. We've also got the first of our Void maps these last 2 weeks. We had a couple Void maps coming out. The first of which was Spec, who came out with this really cool Plastech, very themed kind of, a lot of people akin it to like Ender style scenery type of theme. And just really, really cool. I mean, we talk a lot about, on this podcast, about different ways to integrate scenery into your map. In terms of TrackMania having kind of gone through a phase where I'm just going to put as much scenery and towers on screen as possible, and the more things that are there, it's the best quality, and how we've kind of moved past that into more atmospheric scenery presentation and kind of evolved a little bit, I'd say. And this is kind of another example of that evolution. It's creating kind of a really interesting feeling by having a lot of intricate scenery, but having it be really far away. And creating just a really special look and feel. And obviously the map is really fun to drive too. Plastic and tech, it's really good combination. It's a really, really solid map. Anybody wanted to say anything else about this one?
I mean, if this doesn't get Track of the Day, then I don't know what will. It's not a hard route. It has stunning scenery. This is perfect map for Track of the Day.
Yeah. It was like really fun playing this one. Like coming home after work and just like randomly seeing this one on the Open Talent plugin. Like, oof. Spent like the whole evening playing this one. So yeah, TTD win.
TTD win, indeed.
TTD win.
I have another quick funny story about this one. I made the thumbnail for it, and it is actually Ibo's phone wallpaper right now. So yeah, Spec, you can put that one in the pocket. Your map is on Ibo's phone.
It's officially Nadeo endorsed. You can say that. That's the official. Oh no, did TMX go down again? I'm not able to pull out the thumbnail. Hopefully not.
Probably.
Yeah, super cool stuff. From Spec, great video by Sirix, and wonderful thumbnail coming from our one and only Whiskey here. So I did mention there was another Void map, because there is another Void map. This one exploded onto TMX yesterday, getting over 60 awards in less than a day. Pretty unprecedented map coming out from Juvo. And very different map, although it has the very similar name. Very different. This one is kind of a speed tech kind of map that is themed around it existing pretty much in a void, where there's, in a lot of cases, you don't actually even see what you're driving on, but it's using a lot of other lines and indicators to kind of give you an artificial understanding of where the route is. It's definitely pretty interesting. We've seen kind of similar type concept maps come up before, but I think this is definitely extremely clean and very cohesive version of that type of map. So really cool stuff, really interesting experience. And there's also some custom music that goes along with it. Definitely worth checking out. Definitely turn the soundtrack on for this one. Really, really cool map. And there's also
I think, Intro's got some custom sounds and stuff as well for some of their effects.
Nice. There's also this extra little note here that you could get a void-themed hoodie if you drive the map's intended route. No katas. Get out of your katas for a good time until the 11th of June. So World Record wins a hoodie, and 2 lucky players with AT will win as well. So kind of an interesting note there. So I guess getting AT kind of enters you into the raffle is kind of the impression, at least I had of that, with World Record getting a hoodie. And if it gets Track of the Day before then, which at this rate, probably before the 11th, is probably not as likely.
No. So actually, the story and the reason why this map is out right now is I'm pretty sure it was already denied from Track of the Day.
Oh, okay.
I think some of the I think Uvo was originally going to hold it for Track of the Day release, to like premiere, I guess.
Right.
But I think I feel like I remember seeing something where basically because of the visibility stuff, it got denied from being in the Track of the Day, which is why I held on to it and then released it now.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. So it definitely will not get probably the Track of the Day level of hunting in that sense then. So if you think you've got what it takes to get world record on this map, maybe you'll get a hoodie. We'll see.
I mean, I've seen Stuffed's time, and it looks like he's 4th right now, and that was already very, very fast. So yeah, and also I remember Uvo mapping on this on stream like months ago, maybe even over a year, and it's like finally released. Like, damn.
Yeah, I think
Definitely a crazy project.
Very long-awaited map in that sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, really, really cool stuff here from Juvo and Void. Definitely go give it a look. Giving a brief shout out just because it was brought up by another co-host. This map came out by Okla and myself.
Absolutely shameful using the podcast as a personal promotion platform.
You asked me to talk about this, Agra. I will not accept responsibility.
I can't believe any host on this podcast would ever talk about their own map in this section.
Yeah, this is the worst. Yeah, that's
the
worst.
We're gonna just drop this and completely forget about it.
Yeah, same with this one.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but I honestly, when I came to Okla with this project, he absolutely demolished my expectations in terms of the scenery and the theme and the concept and how he pulled it off. So all I just really wanted to do was make a route that at least gave his scenery and his concept, like it did it justice. So that's all I was trying to do. Really sick scenery and stuff from Okla here.
Just to say, without a video or anything, this map's got a bunch of really cool, like straight up vertical sections, and
they look scary. I've seen the video; they look so scary.
Yeah, you might get some jump scares in here. Oh god! Oh, I almost saw it there. Yeah, I guess I could say that I can tell the story behind this map because it's kind of funny. So, I originally was talking to Zephas about this concept where it was kind of a Inception style city where, when I mean Inception is that like kind of famous scene from the movie Inception where the city kind of folds up on itself. So I built this route that is completely flat, half completely flat vertically. Well, not actually completely flat, but it's all aligned vertically and then half on the ground. Zephas ended up not being able to work on this, and he gave me the go-ahead to work with it on Okla. And when I brought it to Okla, he came to me and he was like, wait, let's do something completely different. Let's do like a giant monster that's like ripping the root out of the ground. And I just thought that was so cool, and he pulled it off in a super cool way. So huge shout out to Oklavukixis. He killed it with this. Really happy to work on this with him. All right, enough talking about this map. Let's move on to Hydroforge, featuring Neon and Okla. This was another map that came out recently. It was really cool. I think very signature style from all three of these guys in terms of their contributions. A lot of off-grid elements, a lot of interesting theming, drifts, kind of unique driving sections. Anybody here have anything to say about this one?
Yeah, I think Sparkling will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I noticed that this map is called Hydroforge, right? And I remember the map he made with Vixa called Futures Forge. So, like maybe we could expect a third map.
Wait, are you leaking?
Since, maybe Sparkling can confirm or deny this, but it's a spin-off, right? So will you make the spin-off into a trilogy, or
That's what you have to, right? Isn't that you're obligated?
Now you have to, yeah. If not, I'll just call the mapping police.
Somebody's got what? Akita's got 4 or 5 of them right now. Somebody's got to get more than that.
True, like you can't let Prof have it. Hello.
We do a little stealing. Yeah. But whether or not it becomes a trilogy, I guess remains to be seen. But overall, really cool map coming out from Neon Sparkling and Oklava Kixis here. Go check it out on TMX. Another map we wanted to bring up is Breezy Peaks. So this is a really cool map coming from Amlen X. And it's just a really clean, really well executed bobsleigh map. It's, I guess, not maybe your more typical super dank bobsleigh flips, weird free block stuff. It's just really well executed with really fun lines and kind of everything you'd really want to see in a bobsleigh map. And I think it's really well done. I think we could definitely see this one coming to Track of the Day very soon as well.
Emlen's become a really good bobsled player, and it's good to see that he's using that power for good. Everything I've seen about this map is that it's calculated really well for fast bobsled, and so actually,
enough for aggro.
Yeah,
that's all he needs. Just calculated bobsleigh, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this like. I remember, I don't even know why I went through this phase, but I was like saying all the time that we need bobsleigh cup of the days. This was before like the Virtual got really hyped about bobsleigh for some reason, but I was always like, yo, we never see this surface in cup of the day. I was like, we need bobsleigh maps, and now I really despise playing them. But I mean.
You got what you wanted, Whiskey. What did it cost you?
I think it's better for everybody to have a good bobsled map to play in Cup. Hopefully this will be the one that takes whatever the next bobsled slot is.
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as they don't consider bobsled and ice the same thing. I think too many times people, I mean, in their TMX awards even, bobsleigh and ice share the same category, which is frustrating to a lot of people. I know. Yeah, we were memeing last year when Santa's Sleigh was getting nominated for a lot of ice awards because it was in the same category, and we're like, I'm sorry, like this is just how the cookie crumbles, I guess, because yeah, but they definitely deserve their own spotlight. Ice and bobsleigh, they're of course they're the same surface texture, but they drive completely differently, and they both have such unique aspects to them, and this map deserves a spotlight for sure. So if you haven't checked it out already, check it out. Breezy Peaks by Emlen. Like I said, he's really on the come up with some really cool maps, and hope to see more from him in the future.
Yep.
Another map, another very busy last couple weeks. This long-awaited project from Intax and Mime, Ragnarok. Really, really cool map. There's no video, at least attached to here, but I'm not going to show it anyways because this is a long map. This is a 2-minute 44 time. Only one person, our resident ski freak, has a time, and I'm curious. I'm curious if he actually had any mistakes in that run, or if that was maybe.
I watched it. He didn't.
He didn't. Okay, so that's probably one of the first non-mistake runs because even the AT time, the GPS/AT time had some mistakes in it. So, shout out to Ski Freak for making that happen.
Yeah, maybe not like. I mean, there are no mistakes in it, but like maybe like it's not an optimal time by far. You know?
Yeah. I mean, of course, like like
it's impressive to watch.
Yeah. Either way, like Ski Freak is not a TAS, but he's played it very impressively. So
yes.
I mean, pretty close.
That TAS Freak when?
That TAS Freak. Yeah, Ski Freak. I'm sorry he wasn't able to get his Zoops. Ski Freak loves Zoops, as we all know. So. Maybe more Zoops in the next version, and he'll do better on that one. But yeah, this map is super sick. I know Intax is working on this one for a long time, especially the scenery. Goes without saying, a map this long, this complicated, this involved takes a lot of scenery, and Intax was slaving away, especially on stream. He's streaming now, so if you want to catch him working on more projects as well in the future, go follow Intax on stream. But super cool map. If you want a challenging dirt, not just from its length, but this map is also just hard. It is very tight. It is very difficult to drive normally as well. So this is not for the faint of heart, but if you're looking for a challenge, you want to sit down and grind something out, very rewarding when you do get it right. So Shout out Mime and Intax Ragnarok. And then last but not least, speaking of self-promotion on the podcast, we have Whisper of the Heart, another pretty long-awaited map. This one's been in the works for a while. I guess, Agri, what can you tell us about this one?
It's funny because it was neither built for Valentine's nor Pride Month, but it seems to somehow fit both of them perfectly. But this has been like really cool project, probably my biggest and best scenery I've done to date. And funny enough, when talking about tutorials and stuff earlier, but I also did a tutorial following with what Whiskey has done before on this, which is also funny because the intro is actually kind of Sapphire inspired as well. Yeah.
And I have to go and watch it. I haven't watched the tutorial or the intro yet. I just skipped it and instantly played.
Incredible. Isn't that how mapping goes?
That's pretty much how it is. Yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked it. I kind of just wanted to work with this color palette and make a cool plastic full speed route that's got a lot of places to optimize. Yami has been waiting for this forever, and he's already put down an absolutely insane time as world record right now. And he said on the TMX page, quote, "This isn't just plus, it's like some ridiculous number of pluses." So if he's a big fan of it, I'm glad, and it seems people are taking to it quite well.
8 times 10 to the third. That's very that's 8,000. It's very specific. 8,000.
Specific, yeah.
Yeah.
8,000.
Well, Yami's done the math. I trust him on that one. He did the math. 8,000 pluses. I mean, yeah, and like you kind of mentioned, like full speed plastic is definitely an underutilized, or I guess underrated, underrepresented category map. So seeing a really high quality, I know you're not gonna be humble about it, but it is incredibly high quality map. And
dude, the production value on that map is crazy. Like it has a tutorial GPS. It has CP banners and whatever, which people forget all the time. It has a cool screenshot. It has a video even. It has cool scenery. It has a good route. It has everything. Just and if your maps have this kind of production value, mad respect. This is like really good.
And it's funny. So it's just showing it. Basically, the only thing that I didn't do for this track was the thumbnail, which is a lovely creation by Prof.
Yeah, it's a great thumbnail too. Fits the vibe too. Really, really.
I knew
cool.
I wasn't gonna do the track good enough compared to how everything else was, so I was like, I gotta go get somebody good for this.
You saying me don't want to do just an MS Paint text Comic Sans on the screen for this one? Yeah, so super cool map. This one is hot off the press. Came out yesterday morning. Go check it out. A Whisper of the Heart by our very own Agbu. So from there, like I said, we had a lot of maps to get through, but we're going to move on to items. So there were a few pretty interesting item sets coming out in the last couple weeks. So we're going to go through them. And maybe if you think any of them look interesting, you can add them to your arsenal and use them in your next map. So starting with Dirt Road Decals. This is a nice little aesthetic set coming out from Valve that's really nice and useful. Really adding a lot of polish to your maps, where you can add these dirt formed decals to the standard vanilla dirt surfaces. So really cool for polish and aesthetics and theming, as well as it will match club logos in real time. It integrates with that.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say it will match because the material that is used for the Volt orbit on the picture is gonna match like when you're playing in a certain club.
Yep.
If it's that one.
Yep. So it's not to be very clear. It is not just the World Tour logo. It will update.
Yeah.
So really cool stuff from Valve. Like to see him coming out with these different pieces of polish, and it's really cool stuff. We also got a couple interesting sets coming from Rosie. I haven't checked these out myself in game, but they look like some variants of the kicker ramps, the launch ramps that you see with Road Tech, but in slope up and slope down variants. So just providing some interesting opportunities for coming in and out of slopes and going off jumps. Maybe some other transitional opportunities as well. We also see them in roadgrass style. So shout out Juice, clearly making an impact in having more people make macro blocks, not just using those sets, but making other items, macro blocks, and otherwise that are specifically integrating with the roadgrass sets. So really cool stuff. So check these out. We're looking for some other launch ramps. I know I'm a sucker for these launch ramps, and just in general, the vanilla ones. So more ramps and Bislip Tech ramps from Rosie. We also wanted to just bring this up because this is pretty interesting as a kind of a commissioned item from the Alamo folks. This was made by Kraz for the Alamo folks, the Texans, for this custom Alamo item. So, but I mean, while this was a requested item, it is available in a couple pieces that you can download and you can use it yourself as well. So just something worth pointing out. This is one that came up in the last 24 hours that is very interesting, coming from Zai. It is a conveyor belt set. I think it'll be very interesting to see how this evolves. I set up a little demo here so people can see what I'm talking about. But it has these different speed and different type conveyor belt items that you can actually stand on and move and use the same tech that the standard moving items do. So these actually work on servers and you can use them in your maps. So I think we'll see a lot more of these in platform maps. It's really interesting. I think it's going to be really cool to see what type of possibilities come from these types of blocks. You see we got some different variants that move at different speeds.
Moving CPs, maybe?
Different sizes.
Suddenly you miss a CP.
I mean, that would be super cool. Maybe moving finish,
Oh no, this finishes a new level.
I think the tech behind this can basically be applied to anything in the game.
That's sick. I just have no clue how this is done, by the way, but it's so cool.
I think they
nice one.
I realized I couldn't actually spawn myself on that. But yeah, it works really well. Cool. Like it doesn't feel super buggy. I think the sides and the collisions are a little buggy, but it's using all the same Nadeo mechanics that are cooked in to power the current blocks. So it's surprisingly well done, and I'm sure we'll see more further updates from this type of stuff in the future from Zai or otherwise. So it's really, really cool stuff. So if you want to play around with these or anything else that we talked about in this section, you can check out any of these maps. They're available on Item Exchange in the most recent sets. So from that, we are going to move on to our last section, which, as we talked about before, is a Q&A. So anybody who is joining us here live in chat, I know we have a couple of questions that have come through, so we're going to go through those first. But if there's anything else that anybody wants to ask our special guest Whiskey or anybody else here on the panel, go ahead and throw those questions in. Anything and everything related to mapping. So starting off...
Except for Ski Freak, he cannot ask any questions.
Yeah. Well, unless you're not on the list. I'm kidding. There's no list. Anybody can ask questions. We've got one from... good question here from Drevo Kukuwer. Sorry if I completely butchered your name. What do you think of the presence of ice or lack thereof in mixed maps? Mixed comp maps. There were several mixed competitions with 0 or maybe even just 1 ice slide, maybe 1 bob turn. Do organizers just generally not want ice? Do the mappers not want to map ice? Is it the players? What do we think about kind of ice in comp?
Well, right. So there, first of all, is a dislike towards ice because, the old Andes, let's put it that way, they never touch the surface, and it's completely different mechanics, which is why there, I guess, has naturally always been a sort of dislike towards it. But, of course, that's not a good enough reason not to put it in a map. I think the biggest reason it's not put in a map is that it's a surface that causes a lot of time difference. Like, you can go into an ice turn and 2 players are equal, and coming out of it you can have like a 0.1 lead if you just take it like slightly better. And I think that's why a lot of competition mappers leave it out, or they prefer to leave it out.
Right.
Like, for example, a bobsleigh turn like Roxy has done in this EMC map is significantly less impactful, but still needs a lot of skill.
Right.
Which is why I think that is still utilized. But yeah, for example, if you start your map with an ice slide somewhere, it's just gonna cause such a lot of time difference, and it's not really that fun in a lot of people, their opinions.
Yeah, I think the key word you use there that makes a lot of sense is impactful. Like measuring impact of a certain section of a certain turn, because not just from a player's perspective or organizers or just competitive integrity, but from a viewer's standpoint, which is ultimately for a lot of these things, is creating a strong viewership and exciting experience for people watching as well. If one section has all of the impact or has an extremely weighted amount of impact, every other section is not as interesting. If just the end of the map is where you can gain or lose all the time, the actual, the stress of the first sections of the map is not as interesting. Or kind of consequently, if the end of the map is just a PF and there's no way to gain or lose time in the end of the map, then it has zero impact, then you're not excited when the map is over because the last 10 seconds are just the players driving to the finish, so
exactly. You need to find a good middle ground.
Yeah. Having each section have a decently similar amount of ways to gain or lose time so that people that are playing, people that are watching are able to adapt and actually push, actually risk, and you feel like you don't actually know who's going to win until the end. So, yeah, that's a really good point you make about impact there.
I think as well, on the same side of impact, if you to make an ice turn that would have less outsized impact, to me honestly just screams that you're just trying to make a boring ice turn. Like it naturally, if an ice turn has any kind of skill needed or something like that, you're going to run into the impact issue. And then it's like, well, okay, if you try to make it so that everybody gets it every time, then it's like, okay, but why?
Then why'd you put it there,
Yeah, you're kind of just starting to waste people's time.
Yeah.
And it usually when ice is in mixed maps, I mean from experience, from the this wasn't a comp map, but for the TMA2 campaign map I did, like all the time was like in the ice sections, and yeah, that's not really good for a competition map, in my opinion.
I mean, it's also
everything can be lost.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Felix.
Oh no, it's okay.
Okay. The only other thing I was going to say about ice is also, think a little outside of the box as well in terms of how you can use ice. Ice is known to be driven in a very particular way in terms of ice slides, like an actual ice slide turn where you're locked. You get into an ice slide and you get out of the ice slide, but it's a slippery surface that allows for other things as well. So there are other types of techniques and ways that you can utilize it in competitive ways that maybe aren't as impactful but are equally interesting or different. So to think about those things as well. So, all right. If don't have anything else to add about ice, we can move on to the next question. Again, anybody, if you have a question that you haven't answered or asked already, go ahead and drop it in the chat. But we got another one here from Moisty3000. One issue I often have while mapping is keeping the route interesting. I try to avoid repeating a feature or section in the route while also making it as smooth as I can. I feel like I get a lot of mapper's block, though. Do you also feel like yourself following those two cardinal rules? Are there any other rules you follow?
Okay. I've had this question before about like specific rules I follow. But I don't really think so. Just like that's where taking inspiration from previous maps and mappers come into place, I guess. And you just give your own spin on what other people built. that's one way to do it. And like a good tip as well, I think, would be if you have like no inspiration anymore, which is like very normal, right? If you build one turn, maybe 2 turns, it's already like very normal that you don't know what else to do, to keep the map interesting. So just save the map, close the editor, wait a day, maybe 2 days, and I guarantee you will get inspiration again. Because in the meantime, you might play some maps. You get your mind refreshed, and you'll be able to find something again. That's, for me at least, usually how it goes. Other than that, just make sure the map is calculated. As long as it's calculated and it flows, and you have like not something that's like completely different to the rest of the map. TMWT. What? Anyways, like, as long as you, well, I don't want to call them rules, but as long as you follow those kind of guidelines, you should be fine. Like, calculation is everything, basically.
Yeah.
Don't worry as much about the rest.
I mean, in terms of when I think about rules and maps, I think calculation does play into it, because this thing does actually factor into calculation as well. But turn direction, just in terms of actually deciding what to do, thinking about turn direction is something that's helpful. And kind of like I was leading to, it has a couple reasons for that. One is flow. If your map is all left turns, it will not feel very flowy. It just won't. It's just kind of one of those things where you want to have a balance of left and right turns and straights where you feel like you are flowing through the map in that way. But it will also play into calculation sometimes too. If you are having too many left turns in a row, the likelihood that you will carry more speed out of one left turn and then convert it into another left turn that will reward you for more speed and then carry that into another left turn, the likelihood is more than likely you will be punished for that speed eventually, because you are riding longer racing lines, carrying more speed, and at some point the map will push you out. Like, it will just push you out. Again, that's not to say that it's impossible, but it's something to look out for. So maps that typically have a little bit more balance of left and right turns, it's going to be easier to calculate that properly and balance that speed where you're rewarding coming out of a left turn and pushing that into capitalizing on that speed going into a right turn, that type of thing. So for both flow and for calculation and balance, it's good to not have your maps just turn into a spiral and have a good balance of left and right turns. So that's just one, I guess, more concrete rule that I would follow. Yep. But yeah, anybody else, Ellipse or Aggro? Any other kind of rules you guys follow? Things that you would want to bring up?
Oof. I mean, sometimes I just put down some blocks, drive it, and see if it actually feels good. If it doesn't, I delete it. Sometimes you like remember some transitions or like sections of other maps that you have played recently, and wait, I can actually kind of do something like this on the map I'm working on, and trying some stuff out, maybe mix it with something else, maybe another surface, but like, usually sometimes it works out, sometimes you hit the X button. So
Bro.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
Funny, I'm actually the exact opposite, where I almost entirely am like generally trying to like follow some set of internal rules or whatever. I don't do a lot of just like free-spirited stuff. I usually am pretty intentional about like, I'm starting a map, it's going to be like this, something like that. However, I basically change the rules with every map because it's boring to get stuck trying to do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, for example, I kind of mentioned this, but with Whisper of the Heart, like specifically, I was like, okay, I'm not just making a plastic full speed thing. I want to make something where there's different transitions that you can control your airtime over, and kind of like going over edges and stuff. And so I kind of like for each, when I build a track, I'll kind of have like a theme in mind of like types of things, and then try and figure out different ways of doing it. It's kind of similar to your phobia maps, but just on a bit like less strict scale than those.
Yeah, I think that is a good point to begin with, though, is like, while it's good in terms of quality, in terms of learning and becoming a stronger mapper, to develop some semblance of quality control in terms of what you're doing, that you're not just going in and just chaos on raining down on Earth, and that you have a sense of rules for yourself to follow to create something that is ultimately of decent quality, that if you focus too hard on those rules, you will lock yourself in a box. So trying to branch out, trying to try new things, and pushing your comfort level, that's always a good thing. So it's a good point you make there, Agra. I guess anybody else wanted to say anything coming to mind about rules in maps and mapping?
I think I've said everything that I wanted,
Same.
Yeah, the other thing he kind of mentioned was, I guess, mapper's block. I know you kind of guys mentioned a little bit. Elips talked about his process. I know Whiskey talked about coming back to things later and kind of doing that. I guess there are different ways to address mapper's block. Specifically, for me personally, I do get mapper's block plenty as well, and I just end up playing what I have done over and over and over and over and over. Like, I just, instead of trying to like look at it from above and go like, what could work here, what block fits, like I just play it a bunch, and then at some point I find myself thinking like, it feels like I should do this next, or like my car wants to go this way next, type of thing. I just start to slowly get a sense of that, and that's just like kind of what works for me. But everybody else, like Elips and Whiskey mentioned, like everybody has their own process. So yeah, we got another question here. By the way, again, we're still doing Q&A, so if anybody wants to squeeze in their question for Whiskey or otherwise, throw it in. We got another question here though from Schlumpy. Whiskey, what upcoming maps do you have? Tell us.
Interviewing.
Okay. So obviously I've got a World Cup map coming up. Some competitive maps, and there's one project that I've been working on for a very long time, and it's a trial map.
Oh.
I don't know when that will be finished, but that should be a fun one. So yeah, that's probably that's about it for the maps coming up. Just some comp maps and the trial as the main map that I've got coming.
So this is coming off the back of TMX is down again. I had it pulled up, but now it's not loading.
There's a YouTube video.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's take a look at the video. But this is coming off the back of a couple more trial projects that you've been part of. One being the Immortalized map, and then the second being the Gordian's Knot map.
I mean that one was by Xefas, right? It was made for Ski Freaks mini trial competition. I think we talked about it, or you talked about it in the, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but yeah, this.
Yeah. So this trial map, this mini trial map was made entirely after I already finished the route of my big trial map, which confused people a little bit, but yeah, I definitely learned a lot about trial making that big trial that I've got coming up, which is why I think this map is pretty cool as well. But I am just very excited about trial lately. I don't know why.
I mean, maybe you mentioned you don't know why you're excited about trial, but you mentioned learning a lot as part of this. Can you kind of like, do you have anything else that you could tell us about what you've learned about trial or how you like to map trial?
Well, I've struggled a lot with making checkpoints for the big trial that's coming up, because I hadn't done it before at all, and I still struggle to think of a scenery concept, but that's a different story. But yeah, so it's a lot about creativity. If your CPs are very interesting, something you've never seen before, people will remain playing the map, instead of if it's just something, just a regular old turtle or something that you've seen dozens of times. People will not find it as interesting, and they'll just not play your map, basically. So I think definitely, I mean, this might just be a mapper thing, but seeing stuff that hasn't been done before, like an interesting transition, that's something that makes me want to play a map. So especially for trial, there's just such a lot of things you can do that are interesting and makes your car do all weird stuff. And the biggest inspiration for this is obviously Simo. He's just I don't know. It feels like he has like 5 brains in his head or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Savant
when it
level.
comes to trial and to his other maps, of course, but his trial maps are obviously crazy.
He's got one brain for each style that he builds.
Yes.
And each of those brains are definitely working well. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you said about, different transitional elements and opportunities for creativity and stuff. And that's definitely true because, I mean, trial is all about exploring some really difficult concept or technique to push it to its limit to make something really difficult but ultimately something really rewarding to finish, not even just about hunting and getting the best time. And typically when we're doing mapping or transitional mapping or creative mapping, we're still kind of following some of those rules of well, it has to be flowy, I have to keep the gear, I have to do all these other things, and trial just takes all those restrictions off. It's like, oh, you could do a flip, you can crash into a wall, you can do whatever you want, you just gotta do something, so it allows for so much more, a bigger pool of ideas to come to reality.
It's so simple, but in the meanwhile it's so not simple. It's hard to explain, but like finishing a trial, it's not only the driving, it's also like you've got to actually spend time on something like that. And I don't know, it's a very, very interesting style to me. I really been getting into it lately, and might not stop at that trial that's coming up.
I mean, if you're this excited about it, I think it'd definitely be cool to see you doing more. And I'm sure now that you said that the route for the current trial, bigger project, has been done for a little while, and now this last one for skis competition is done. I'm sure you've got some more ideas cooking up in that skull of yours for other trial stuff. So it'll be great to see that soon. We got another question here from Aziel TV. Sorry, my name pronunciation today is on point. Whiskey, what's your favorite comp map you've built, and why is it Menace?
Menace.
Well,
why is it Menace? Is because Aziel or Carpanostra is my duo on that map. So obviously that's why I have to pick that map. That's a really hard question though. I mean, I will probably just go with my latest EMC maps. They're duos with Navi and Clem. But I just think they turn out really, really fun. Yeah, I mean, probably just the latest map, like if the next comp map I release is probably gonna be better, and the one after that's gonna be my favorite one. It's that's just how it goes.
Hey, I mean, that's a good thing, I think. If your most favorite stuff is whatever you're putting out, that means you're excited about it and you feel like you're pushing yourself in that way. So it's good to hear that you're not just putting out stuff that you're like, meh, this is garbage, but have it. Here you go.
Yeah, that's probably not the way to go about it. I like how Ski Freak, by the way, asked the question, what are your 3 favorite maps from the trial competition that he's hosting? He's trying to trick me into judging for him. Yeah, it's not gonna happen, Ski. Forget it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think trial or otherwise, can't wait to see what else you've got coming up in the future for us. Whiskey, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast here with us today. If you aren't already following Whiskey on TMX, he's not in your favorites, what are you doing? Go follow him. He's also on Twitter. He's on YouTube. He's making really high quality videos, not just for his own maps, but other people's maps as well. So follow him, subscribe to him on YouTube, follow him on Twitter, follow him on TMX. And hey, if you're watching, listening right now, and you're enjoying this podcast, go ahead and give us a follow here on Twitch. We usually do this every 2 weeks. I do have to make the announcement that we are going to not be having episode 7 in its normal time in 2 weeks from now. We are going to be having to skip an episode in a sense. Unfortunately, I'm going to be moving that weekend, and I will not be available. And then the following weekend, we were considering pushing it just one weekend, but a lot of us are going to have things going on, and there's also going to be a lot of TMGL stuff going on and whatnot. So we have decided to fully delay until the following episode time for our episode 7. So apologies for anybody who's looking forward to the next episode in 2 weeks. We're going to do a little bit of delaying, but we'll be coming back with episode 7. Another special guest. Very exciting stuff. So if you're not already following, go ahead and follow us on Twitch. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Give the video a like. Stick around for next time. But with that, I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much, Whiskey, for joining us. Thank you to my co-hosts here.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope anybody watching, anybody listening has a wonderful rest of their day. Take it easy, everybody.